Hey, so I'm away from home just now. I'm in a hotel away for work, so I don't have all my stuff with me, but I really needed to make a response video to uh, uh, you, Flaming Christian, or whatever your name is. I, we've been talking in the comments a lot, and you're adamant that you are right, and you unfortunately suffer from what a lot of Protestants suffer from, which is you can't be wrong itis, okay, and you can't take advice syndrome. You're talking about something that you don't know about. Okay, you're talking about the Catholic Church. You don't know about the Catholic Church, right? Uh, we're going to get into your video. I'm going to do it very quickly. I'm not going to be able to show the other side because I've only got my phone and I haven't got any equipment to actually do it with, but I will cover this again some other time. But I just want to take you through, basically go through your video and just point out where you're wrong. It's just not a matter of opinion. Um, I'm totally happy for you to have your own views, your own beliefs, different viewpoints, different ideas. Uh, that's perfectly valid. What is not valid is to claim that the Catholic Church teaches something that it doesn't teach. Okay, that's not allowed. That's not on. You can't do that. So I'll take you through it and explain to you exactly where you're getting this wrong. You're really off to a bad start, of course, because your title of your video is wrong. You are specifying the Roman rites of the Catholic Church, but erroneously, because your video is not specific to the Roman Catholic Church or the Roman Church or the Roman rite, as it's called. All these teachings that you are talking about. They apply to the entire Catholic Church, not just the Roman rite. I don't think you know the difference. If I'm wrong, please tell me in the comments that you understand my point here about you specifying Roman when it's not. It doesn't make any sense. So anyway, let's get into the video.
Oh, sorry if it sounds a bit weird or my microphone sounds a bit weird. I'm literally recording off my phone microphone, so
Okay, that's what I'm doing too. So
don't criticize me on that.
I can't.
Also, I realize that there are too many false beliefs of the Catholic Church to fit into one video, so
Yeah, there isn't. If you were to actually study Catholic teaching, you wouldn't find any. Okay, if you really represented the Catholic teaching correctly, you would not be able to argue against it. Okay, many people have tried, and many people become Catholic, right? But let's see your best efforts then at trying to represent Catholic teaching correctly.
making it into different parts. This is part one, where I'm going to put some of my strongest arguments against the Catholic Church.
And that's great. We actually want your strongest arguments. I'm glad these arguments are not strong at all. So if these are your strongest, then don't bother with part two, right? Because they're not going to get any better than this. These are already poor arguments you're going to make here.
So we'll start off with, first off, false doctrine. And the Catholic...
Now, I'm not going to keep pausing this. I'm going to let you explain your slide here fully. But yeah, definitely off to a bad start. No such thing as church infallibility. Doesn't exist. Okay. Roman Catholic Church doesn't exist. It's just a Catholic Church. And church infallibility doesn't exist either. So off to a bad start. But I'll let you finish explaining this, and then I'll tell you all the things that you've got wrong with it.
And the reason why false doctrine makes the Catholic Church wrong, the whole Catholic Church wrong, even if it's just one false doctrine, is because the Catholic Church believes in church infallibility. The Roman Catholic Church has a belief that the Church has equal authority to the Bible and therefore is infallible, because the Bible is infallible, and because the church is, that means that, and because the church is infallible, the Catholic Church believes that all of its doctrines are infallible. Also, because they were made by the church, which is infallible, therefore can't fail. So if a doctrine is proven wrong, a belief of the Catholic Church is wrong, which means the Catholic Church isn't infallible, which means one of the main beliefs of the Catholic Church is wrong, which means the Catholic Church in a whole is wrong. So you can't just have one wrong thing about the Catholic Church and just have everything right. No, it doesn't work that way. If one thing is wrong...
Okay, I'm going to stop there just now because it was quite a lot already. So is it the Catholic Church that believes it's equal authority with the Bible, or the Roman Catholic Church? Because you keep on changing your mind. I don't know which one you mean here. Right. You said that the Catholic Church believes that all of its doctrine is infallible. Wrong. Completely wrong. Most Catholic doctrine is not considered infallible. Okay. Yeah, most of it, I would say, there's got to be 90% is not infallible. So I don't know where you got this idea from, but that's just absolutely not true. Not true at all. Most teaching is pastoral. Only the absolute fundamentals, that are taught at councils, or on the very rare occasion where there's an ex cathedra statement. There's only ever been 2 of those, ever. It's not very common to have infallible doctrine. Usually only when there's a dispute with Protestants. Actually, it's Protestants that make doctrine infallible. It's not usually an issue in the church. And then you went on to say that if the Catholic Church can be proven wrong in one of its infallible doctrines, that would disprove all of their infallible doctrines. That's not logical, obviously. If you were to be able to prove that a Catholic doctrine was wrong and it was considered infallible, all you would do is prove that the Church is not infallible. It would not prove that any other doctrines were false, right? So you might be able to prove that Mary was in fact conceived with original sin. Pardon me. But even if you could prove that, it wouldn't disprove the other infallible doctrine of the Catholic Church, which is that God is a Trinity, right? Or an infallible doctrine like Jesus rose from the dead for the redemption of mankind. That's an infallible doctrine of the Catholic Church. You somehow proving that Mary sinned does not disprove the resurrection of Christ. Okay, so there's a logical fallacy there.
Wrong about the Catholic Church. The whole thing is wrong.
Yeah, it can't be. Right. Interesting slide. There's no such thing as, there's no such document as a Vatican II. Vatican II doesn't have any paragraphs because it isn't a document. This is bizarre. What you're actually doing there. Well, let's continue.
For the first false doctrine, Vatican II, paragraph 841.
Vatican II is not a document. It's not a teaching. It's not a doctrine. It was a council that took place in the 60s. It produced a lot of documents. This isn't one of them, by the way. But it's no. This, what you don't realise is that actually Catholics take one look at this quote here, just the format of it, and we know exactly where this comes from. Okay, this doesn't come from Vatican II. It doesn't even exist. This comes from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and clearly you haven't got this quote from its source because you would know the title of the book where this came from is called The Catechism of the Catholic Church, not Vatican II. Now, it's funny because this is an odd objection you're making here. Your strongest argument is actually one that Protestants don't usually make about the Catholic Church. This is not a common objection. But let's hear what you got to say about this. These few lines from the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
The Church's relationship with Muslims, the plan of salvation, also includes those who acknowledge the Creator in the first place among us whom are Muslims. These to hold the faith of Abraham, and together with us they adore the one merciful God, mankind's judge on the last day. For the first verse against this,
against what? What is incorrect about that statement on Islam? He who has the Son has life. Yeah, obviously. He who does not have the Son of God does not have life. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to let you continue just now, and we'll see where this is going.
On 5:12, he who has the Son has the life. He who does not have the Son does not have the life. Do not have the Son does not have the life? They don't believe that, Muslims don't believe that Jesus is God, and therefore they don't have the Son, therefore they don't have the life, which is eternal life, therefore they don't have salvation, which makes his doctrine wrong.
Yeah, cool. So no one's saying that Muslims are saved because they're Muslims. Okay, the plan of salvation includes everyone, every human being. So it's not explicitly Muslims. Now, if you were to read the entire teaching on this, not just those 3 or 4 lines, you would realize that actually this is part of a bigger document, and it explains all this, all this stuff that you're saying here. Oh, sorry, all the stuff that you're saying here, it explains it in the document. Just the bit that you didn't read, the bit before it. So you should go back and look at it. And the Catechism of the Catholic Church does not include that. You'll see. Oh, if we go back just briefly, I'll get a little bit more. There we go. Oh yes. So there you go. You see how it says at the end. Well, actually, you see how most of this paragraph here is actually a quote, right, from the plan to the end. That's a quote. That quote has a footnote there. 330. If you go look up the footnotes, I don't think you have the footnotes. I think you just got this quote. I don't think you don't even know which book it comes from, right? So look up the quote, the footnote. It's from Lumen Gentium. Okay. Now I've been trying my best to get you to read Lumen Gentium for a while now, but I don't think you've done it. Look up Lumen Gentium and read the paragraphs before this that give you the context. This is at the very end of the whole teaching on how the Church relates to people of other faiths or partial Christian faiths, like your own, and it describes it all, and you'll get the context. You're reading this and thinking that the Church is saying that you can be saved by Islam. That's not what it's saying. In fact, it's saying the opposite of that. It's saying you can't be. You need Christ. The document says that. So you can go look at that yourself. A bit of homework for you.
Salvation, which makes his doctrine wrong. Also, the reason why this doctrine is wrong, aside from it just being obvious that Muslims aren't saved, the reason...
Yeah, it is obvious that Muslims are not saved. Islam doesn't save. Islam doesn't save. It's perfectly possible for a Muslim to actually have Christ, though, right? So a Muslim who comes to the knowledge of Christ could well be saved through him. And that's what the document is saying. It's about our relationship with other religions. How do we best spread the good news, right, of the gospel? That's what the document's about. So I don't want to embarrass you too much here by saying all this. Go read the document, okay? And the document, I know it's titled in Latin, it's called Lumen Gentium. That means light of the nations. And it's a teaching about the church being the light of the nations, about the church enlightening other nations that are not Christian nations. Okay? It's about spreading the good news to these nations, meeting people where they are, right? Understanding what Muslims believe. Okay, they don't have Christ, but they do at least share in the faith of Abraham. So meet them there. Start with that and bring them closer to God through Christ. That is what the document's about. Okay, we'll move on.
Why this doctrine is incorrect is that Muslims only believe Jesus as a prophet and not as God, therefore they don't believe into the Son.
All this is covered in the actual document. He even says exactly, this is not a quote from the document, but it looks like it. You're actually quoting the document here, so that's funny.
And as the verse I just showed you said, he who has the Son has the life. He who does not have the Son does not have the life.
Yeah, correct. That's
and
exactly
since
what
Muslims
teaches.
do not believe into the Son, they don't have the life or eternal life.
Yeah.
Second false doctrine, Council of Trent on Justification, Canon 9.
Oh, well, hang on. You said it was Canon 4 in the title slide. Now you say it's Canon 9. That's strange. Okay, let's continue anyway.
It says that the sinner is justified by faith alone, meaning nothing else is required to cooperate in order to obtain the grace of justification, and that it is not in any way necessary that he be prepared and disposed by the action of his own will, let him be anathema, which means condemned to hell or a grand curse by the Catholic Church.
No, it doesn't. And that's not what anathema is. Anathema is not being condemned to hell. This is your imagination running wild, I think. That's not what it means. It means it's a type of formal excommunication, meaning you're excluded from the church, the Catholic Church. So only Catholics can be anathematized. If you say this in Canon 9, you cannot be anathematized because you're not Catholic. It's a punishment specifically for Catholics. Basically, you are already excommunicated from the Catholic Church. You voluntarily excommunicate yourself from the Catholic Church. Okay? Because you do say that, well, presumably you say that a sinner is justified by faith alone, meaning that nothing else is required to cooperate. So you say that, you believe that. So you would want to be anathematized then, I would imagine. If you happen to be Catholic right now, you'd be asking to be anathematized. Right, you'd want that. Because you want to not be part of the Catholic Church anymore. Anyway, there's no anathema in the Catholic Church anymore, and that's been abolished for a long time. It was abolished because it was basically never used. It's extremely rare. So anyway, I don't see what your problem is with Canon 9. I actually do think you meant to show Canon 4. I know Canon 4. I know that is much more commonly objected to Canon. Canon 9, yes, Calvinists in particular would be against Canon 9, but you're just arguing against other Protestants. You're not really arguing against the Catholic Church in this one. Grace has to be accepted. Yeah, it has to be accepted. So you are within your rights to refuse grace from God. So everyone believes that except for Calvinists. So, but you're welcome to your own opinion.
basically means you aren't a believer. So
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You can be a believer and still be anathematized. Well, you can't be anathematized now, but at the time of Council of Trent, you could still be a believer, just not in that canon. If you didn't believe in that canon, you would be anathematized only until you changed your mind. If you changed your mind and you decided that you now agree with that canon, you could then re-enter the church again.
first verse on that, for it is by Ephesians 2, 8-9, for it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is a gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast.
Yeah. Canon 9 is not talking about works. It's talking about accepting grace, being offered grace and accepting it. It's saying that you need to accept the grace. It's you can't. If you don't want the grace, God would not force it on you. That's what it's saying. It's not about works. You meant canon 4. You've made a mistake here in your slide deck. It was meant to be canon 4 that you were. It clearly was meant to be canon 4 because your title slide said canon 4, and now your objections here from scripture are answering canon 4, not canon 9. So I think that's where you made a mistake.
Second verse, Galatians 3:11, that by law no one is justified before God is evident. The righteous one shall have life and live by faith. Which means,
again, canon 9 is not about the law, not about works. It's not about the law. It's purely about whether you accept the grace or not. You have free will to reject grace if you want. That's what canon 9 says.
live by faith, gain salvation from their faith. Also, Romans 3:23-24. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, being justified freely by his grace through the redemption which is in Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and then that one actually, that's probably where canon 9 comes from, honestly. That backs up canon 9. You're justified freely. So, thank you for including that one. That helps me out.
Now, the reason why this doctrine is wrong, I just showed you a bunch of verses saying we're justified by faith alone, and therefore that doctrine is false. But the reason why this doctrine is wrong, it is clear in many verses in the Bible that a person is justified by faith alone. But many Catholics will use James 2 and Romans 2 to say that salvation is through faith and works.
Okay, faith and works has nothing to do with canon 9. Definitely you're talking about canon 4. But I'm glad that you have pointed out that the Bible does say that we're saved through faith and works. James 2 and Romans 2. So thank you for that. Yes, the Bible does support faith and works. Your objection was not faith and works, though. It was accepting grace through free will.
But in James 2, what the Bible means by saying faith without works is dead is that faith produces works, and without works there is no sign of your faith, therefore your faith is dead.
So that's what you say it means, but you're fallible, so I'm not sure why we would take your word for it. But again, it's your opinion and you're entitled to it. I'm only here to correct you on your false statements about the Catholic teaching, so batter in and believe what you like.
Not that you gain salvation through your works.
Yeah.
And
The Catholic Church does not teach that you gain salvation through your works. You made a mistake there again. Faith and works is for sanctification, which is something that you, as a Calvinist, you don't have, right? You don't have a concept of sanctification, so it's irrelevant to you. The Catholic Church teaches that neither faith nor works merit the grace of justification. And if you had read the decree on justification, not just the canons, then you would have seen that. You probably didn't read the document, you probably just got these canons of some Protestant website. Maybe you're looking at John MacArthur or something like that, getting little snippets of information, but not the full story. So once again, the teaching on justification in the Catholic Church is that neither faith nor works merit the grace of justification. That is the Catholic teaching, and I've made a video on it before, which you've watched as well. So maybe it was after you made this video. I don't know, but that's that. Okay, let's move on.
The Catholic Church says in Romans, codified by Romans 2, they quote a verse saying, God will judge man by his works, but that is clarified in Romans 3, where it says, for we account that a man is justified by faith apart from the works of law.
Yeah, works of the law are the Mosaic law of the Jews. Obviously, Paul, I'm afraid, sorry, St. Paul was talking to the Romans who were Gentiles, and there was a big question in the first century about whether the Gentiles who became believers in Christ had to abide by the works of the law the way the Jews do, and Paul was quite adamant that they did not have to, and so that's what that is about for sure. You get the context of that in Acts 15 when the church met for its first council, and they agreed together with St. James and St. Peter that this decision was that the Gentiles were not bound by the works of the law, and that became binding on the whole church. That was the Catholic Church. There was one decree made for one doctrine for the entire church, and you can read about that in Acts 15. The Bible says that we're justified by our works. Yep, absolutely. Not works of the law. Works of charity. Yeah.
Romans 3:28. And note, this is only two of the many false doctrines of the Catholic Church.
So you only gave one doctrine. The other one, which is a statement of fact about Muslims. So I don't know, unless you're talking about papal infallibility. So your two objections are that the Church says that it's infallible, and that we cannot resist grace if offered to us. That's your two false doctrines, and you haven't disproved either of them, because you just said that the Catholic Church isn't infallible. That was your opinion. And then the other one was that you were arguing against Canon 4, not Canon 9. So you didn't disprove Canon 9 at all. So we haven't got very far so far.
Maybe there aren't any. Maybe the Catholic Church can prove me wrong on that.
Yeah,
but I'm
pretty
sure there's a lot of.
We're doing it right now. We're proving you wrong right now. We're not proving you wrong on your views on this. We're proving you wrong on how you have researched Catholic doctrine. You've got that wrong. You've just got that wrong. You're saying we believe things that we don't. So
there are doctrines that are false, and if I try to fit them all in here, this video would be probably an hour.
Your understanding of the church teaching is wrong, not the teaching itself. We're no further forward about proving or disproving the actual teaching of the Catholic Church because you haven't presented it.
So we'll move on to the next point. The worship of Mary.
Yeah, this is funny.
Exodus 24:5. You shall not make yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. And there's few words after that, but
I really hope you don't take selfies. If you ever take a selfie, you're making an image of something under heaven. and that's you. So, according to that passage that you just read, the way you're applying that is that you make yourself into an idol, because you make an image of yourself. Now you are an image, that is true. So am I. We all are. We're images made in the likeness of God. So we're all images. But I don't actually understand right now. We'll get into your explanation here. But so far, all you said is that you just said the worship of Mary. You haven't proved that from any doctrine of the Catholic Church. You've just said the worship of Mary, and then give a Bible verse about images. So specifically, the images that are worshipped. Maybe you're going on to try to claim that Catholics worship statues or something like that. Let's see.
Rather not include that. Why Catholics worship Mary, obviously worship Mary is false because that is idolatry, and because
yes, it's obviously false. It's obviously wrong to worship Mary. Yes, you're absolutely right on that one. Yeah, it is wrong. Worship of Mary would be idolatry for sure. Yeah. The Catholic Church agrees with you. In fact, the Catholic Church came before you, so you agree with the Catholic Church. Right now, you're just stating Catholic teaching. Actually, you're stating it accurately now, but by accident.
The last verse I showed you. Now, most Catholics will say that they don't worship Mary.
All Catholics will say they don't worship Mary because no Catholic worships Mary. Okay, Protestants have a very hard time listening, accepting this reality. It seems more important to them that this is true than it is about finding out what the real truth is. I wonder why that is. They seem absolutely obsessed with this. It's just a very, very strange phenomenon. But at least you're aware that we deny your claim that we worship Mary.
But they do. And here's why.
But they do. Well, but they do. But they don't. Okay? They don't. So let's see what your reason is.
The Catholic Church makes statues or idols of Mary. And as I showed you in Exodus 20, you're not supposed to make an image.
Yeah, well, we make statues of other saints. We make statues of St. Peter, of St. Andrew. We make statues of St. Francis of Assisi. We make statues of St. Patrick, St. Philip Neri. Yeah, and as I say, we make YouTube videos where we make an image of ourselves as well. We're not worshipping ourselves by doing that. We're not worshipping people by making statues of them. That should be pretty obvious. If it's not obvious, well, you know now because I'm telling you. Okay, so making statues is not it's not worship. If you were to make a statue of someone and then worship either the statue or the person, that would be idolatry. Yeah, but that's not what we do.
What Exodus means, false image. Another reason why Catholics worship Mary is because Catholics pray and bow down to those idols.
It's not an idol. It's a statue. An idol is something that's worshipped. So you're basically, it's what your argument here is the tail wagging the dog, right? You're saying it's an idol, and then you're saying, oh look, they worship it. They worship these idols. Idols are things that are worshipped. Okay. You can't. I mean, there's no idols that aren't worshipped by definition, right? These statues are images, decorations. Okay, they depict stories from the Bible. For most of the church's history, because the church is 2,000 years old. Yeah, your church is only 500 years old. Well, your Calvinist, yeah, so that 500 years old. Most people, for the majority of the history of your church, could read and write. In the Catholic Church, it's not the case because it's much older. For a very large amount of time, people couldn't read, especially in Greek or Latin. And so the way that the gospel was shared was through images, through pictures. That's why you have stained glass in very old churches, for example. So that's the very thing that you're saying is evil, and idolatry was actually the way that the gospel was spread to the world. It's how the gospel got to France, where John Calvin was, and it's how the gospel got to America, where you are, through pictures. So you should maybe be a little bit more grateful.
That Catholics make of Mary. Not bowing down in itself is not idolatry.
Correct. We actually don't bow down to statues. Anyway, Protestants also have a very confused idea of the difference between bowing and kneeling. Catholics kneel to pray wherever we are, whether there's a statue in the vicinity of us or not. We kneel to pray. Okay, we pretty much always kneel to pray. Before bed, we will say a prayer. We'll kneel next to our bed. Are we worshipping our bed because we kneel? Bowing is not worship either. Actors at the end of a show will bow to the audience. They're not worshipping the audience. They're saying thank you. Yeah. Thank you for coming. So thank you for the applause. So no, these are not acts of worship. They could be if you worship, but the worship part of it is you saying I worship. It's not the actions themselves.
But with bowing and praying to an idol, that makes it work.
Again, idols are objects that are worshipped. Catholics do not pray to an idol, and if you're trying to claim that you know the inner thoughts in my head better than I know them myself, I'm sorry. You think you know my own thoughts better than I know them myself. You don't, right? You don't think that. You know you don't. But I just assume that you must think I'm lying. That must be what it is, right? You must think that I'm lying, that actually I do worship Mary, but I'm not going to say because I know it's wrong, so I'm not going to. All right, if that is the case, imagine if that was the case, then if I know it's wrong, why am I doing it? If I know Mary isn't God, why am I worshipping her as a God? That doesn't make any sense. The only scenario where you could really say that someone was worshipping Mary was if they were willing to say to you, oh no, I do worship Mary and you should too. Just like you do with God, just like I do with God. When you worship someone, you want to share your faith with others and encourage them as well. So denying that we worship Mary should be a big alarm bell to you that something's not quite right in your theory.
And idolatry. Some Catholics will say they make requests to Mary for her to deliver those prayers to God.
Yeah, well, pray does actually mean request. Yeah, that's what the word means. Yes, not some Catholics. All Catholics will say that prayer is a request. Prayer can be worship. It can be. It doesn't have to be. If prayer is done is directed towards God. If it's a prayer of praise, for example, prayer of praise is only for God, and that would be worship. But if you think worship is when you ask God to give you stuff, you're not really worshipping. I'm afraid you don't know what worship is. If that's what you think it is, you don't know what worship is. But keep reading Catholic books and doctrines, and you'll find out what worship is.
God, which doesn't make sense because Mary isn't omnipresent and doesn't know whether you're praying or not. He can't.
How do you know that? How do you know Mary isn't omnipresent? How do you know Mary can't hear prayers? Making stuff up? It's not in the Bible, is it? Making stuff up. Okay, well, I don't know if Mary is omnipresent or not. I don't even know if Mary can hear my prayers. Not for sure, because the Bible doesn't say so. So what?
She can't just barge in like God would.
God doesn't barge in. I don't know where you got that from. But we'll let it on the slide.
And can't hear those requests, and the definition of pray is to make a request to an entity, which makes it so they pray to Mary anyway.
So now you're saying that prayer isn't worship. Well, you're saying that prayer is a request to an entity. So you're now saying that it's not specifically worship. You make your mind up here.
They will claim that they don't pray to an entity and therefore it's not praying, but
no, we do request. We do make requests to Mary, and to the other saints, and to each other, our friends. We're all one church. The saints on earth and the saints in heaven are all one church. So there's no real difference other than those that are in heaven are much closer to God. And you'll know Scripture well, I'm sure, and you'll know that the prayers of the righteous are more powerful than the prayers of the unrighteous. And I suspect that you think that you're righteous, so your prayers must be very powerful. But my prayers are not so powerful. They're not as powerful as the prayers of those who are in heaven. They're closer to God than I am.
They make requests to Mary while they're bowing to an idol.
No.
So it's kind of odd.
No, not really, no. We don't bow to an idol. We make requests to Mary whether we're near a statue or not. The statue is irrelevant. There may well be a statue in the room when we do it. There may well not be. I say the rosary on the bus. So that's 50 Hail Marys where I make a request to Mary to pray for me and for sinners now and at the hour of our death. 50 times on the bus. There's not usually a statue on the bus for me to kneel or bow to. So no, this is just superstition, I'm afraid. It's not. It's your imagination.
Yes, and even if this isn't really convincing,
it's definitely not convincing. Okay.
These two images.
Yeah. So this is not
Catholics bowing to a statue of Mary.
Okay. You moved on. That wasn't bowing. That was kneeling. Let's see it again.
So it's kind of obvious, and even if this isn't really convincing, look at these two.
So it's funny, you kind of know it isn't convincing, don't you? That's why you mention it. You're not even convincing yourself. So this is called kneeling when you use your knees, right? You know, when you bend the knee rather than the waist or the neck, that's called kneeling, not bowing. The bishop in this photograph does look like he's looking at the ground. You could potentially say that his head is slightly bowed. The bishop, by the way, is the one with the scarlet cap. this is kneeling for prayer. So these people are probably praying right now. You may have a problem with prayer. I don't know. I also don't know how you know what they're praying. How do you know that they're praying to God? They may be praying to the Father. They may be praying to the Son. They may be praying to the Holy Spirit. They may be asking a saint to pray for them as well. But unfortunately, there's no speech bubbles here pointing at these people's heads to tell us what they're actually thinking. There is a statue there which presumably is Mary. It does look looks to me a bit like Our Lady of Fatima, but I'm not convinced. I'm not 100% sure. It could be anybody. It's hard to tell. It does look like it's probably a Catholic church. It could be Anglican, it could be Episcopalian, it could be Lutheran. No, maybe not Lutheran because there's a bishop. But there's no guarantee this is a Catholic church. It doesn't look all that much like a Catholic church, to be fair. That doesn't look like a valid altar. But maybe it is. Maybe someone will correct me on that one. It's an odd image. I don't even know what's going on here. This is not a common sight in the Catholic Church, so I'm not really sure what's going on. To me, the best guess to me here is that they're waiting for communion. That the priest who's celebrating the mass is actually not in the image, and he's coming to give them communion, because you would take communion on your knees as well. So you're basically saying that people who, like, that if you're going to kneel down and say prayers in the vicinity of a statue, that whether you like it or not, whether you want to or not, whether you mean to or not, you are worshipping any image within, I don't know, 2 to 3 meters radius of where you are. So are they worshipping the pipe organ? Are they worshipping the flowers that have been arranged there? Are they worshipping each other? Because they're all very close to each other. Maybe they all worship each other, right? Who knows? We can't tell because we can't see into their minds.
Images. Catholics bowing to a statue of Mary and people bowing to Baal.
You know what this reminds me of? This picture here. This reminds me of the Protestant altar call. Looks a lot like that. They'll have their pastor there with his hands up. And everyone comes to the front and has an altar call. That's what that looks like to me. Obviously, except for the bit where Baal's on fire and there's a furnace and they're handing babies to be sacrificed by burning them alive. That bit, obviously, they don't do that in altar calls. Yeah, it's similar, right? It's similar.
It's very similar, doesn't it?
Yeah, very similar.
Because it's almost exactly the same.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. Yeah, especially the babies bit. That's definitely. I'll give you that. We're always sacrificing babies in the Catholic Church.
For my third point, church authority / infallibility.
Oh, I thought we already covered this at the very beginning. Well, a high emphasis on tradition.
A high emphasis on tradition.
Shocking. What? How could they do this?
My first point, now I obviously showed you that church isn't infallible because of its false doctrine, but...
Right, you're not infallible either. So, if you have proved that the Catholic Church is not infallible, all you've done is put them on the same level of authority as you, which is 0, right? So you're not infallible. If the Catholic Church isn't infallible, so what? So what? It's got just as much authority to teach as you do then.
It takes 5 seconds
sorry.
to skip the video and also 5 seconds to save a life.
Okay.
Let me tell you how.
We'll do that later.
I'll show you another one. Colossians 2:8. Beware that no one carries you off as spoil through his philosophy and empty deceit, according to the tradition of men, according to the elements of the world, and not according to Christ. This is one viewpoint that Baptists.
Beware that no one carries you off as spoil through his philosophy and empty deceit, according to the tradition of men. Okay. Please explain what this has got to do with sacred tradition. Explain what this has got to do with sacred tradition of the church. We are very aware. Don't worry, we're being aware. We're making sure that no one carries us off through philosophy and empty deceit, according to the tradition of men. Don't worry about that. We're being aware. But thank you for your concern, though.
To justify their no tradition, and also 2 Thessalonians 2:15. So then, brothers, stand firm and hold to the things which were handed down to you, and which you were taught, whether by word or by letter, which Catholics usually use to justify their high sense of tradition.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for, because I can't share right now, but that's exactly what I would have said. Yes, St. Paul says explicitly that the teachings are passed down by word and by letter. So his letters is what he's talking about there, probably. But yeah, he also passed on things by word as well. And that's what sacred tradition is. It's not just any old tradition. It's not like it's a tradition to celebrate Christmas on the 25th of December, right? That's a tradition. That's a tradition of men. Yeah, it is. I wouldn't say it was empty or deceitful, but we should be aware of it. But sacred tradition is not. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the things Jesus taught to the apostles that were not written down, but were passed on. They've been passed down for the first few generations of bishops, then were written down later. So the church fathers wrote down what Jesus taught the apostles, that was not which does not appear in the biblical books and letters, but are nevertheless instructions from Christ. That's what sacred tradition is. So, unless you can prove that Jesus didn't say these things, then it's reasonable to think that it is actually the word of God because it was spoken by God.
And this is the reason why a high emphasis on tradition is false. The Roman Catholic Church believes that church tradition is infallible because
there's no such thing in the Roman Catholic Church, but we've covered that. Believes that the church tradition is infallible. Where are you getting this? It doesn't. It doesn't. And you haven't stated any. Actually, you haven't cited any church doctrine to back it up. You've just said it. We should just trust you, right?
Founded by the church, and it said, but as it says in Colossians 2:8, beware that no one carries you off as spoil through his philosophy and empty deceit.
Well, you need to explain to us how it's empty deceit. Explain to us how, I don't know, the tradition of, I think of, basically all of sacred traditions in the Bible. It's just maybe not taught as explicitly. Trying to think of a good example. Yeah, everything's in the Bible. I can't even think of a tradition that isn't in the Bible. Clearly, you can't either because you haven't given any examples. Anyways, continue.
According to the tradition of man, according to the elements of the world, and not according to Christ. Paul warns about tradition in this verse and its risk of deceiving and manipulating us to the way of the world. In the 2 Thessalonians
Give us some examples
2:15, it says to stand firm and hold to the things which were taught, which is tradition. So what does this mean?
Tradition.
Well, it means that Christians shouldn't put away tradition as Baptists do, but we shouldn't treat tradition like it's some unfailing thing and something that shouldn't be changed if it's wrong.
All right. So, what about the Bible? Can we do that with the Bible? You claim the Bible's infallible, right? So does that mean that we shouldn't be carried off in empty deceit because we've got this tradition that the Bible's infallible and these books, these are the books that we traditionally use in the Bible, but we shouldn't be we should be open to changing that, right? Because we shouldn't. Basically, it might be harmful if we are too rigid about which books are in the Bible. It's just the same thing.
But put away tradition when it contradicts the Bible or it's harmful or false.
Well, where does the Bible say anything about putting away tradition when it contradicts the Bible? Maybe we should put away the Bible when it contradicts tradition, seeing as the Bible itself is a list of traditional books. Where do they come from? Does the Bible have a contents page? An inspired contents page? No, it doesn't. These books are they're traditionally believed to be the only inspired books.
So we as Christians should have a moderate view of tradition, not high.
Well, we have a moderate view of tradition. Moderate because it's equal with scripture and with the magisterium. So they're all moderate because they're all equal.
A second point, the papacy. For there is 1 Timothy 2:5, for there is one God and one mediator between God and man, the man Jesus.
Okay, so what does the Catholic Church teach about the papacy that you don't agree with? You just said the papacy. What do you have against the papacy? You just said there's one God. Well, the Pope isn't God. The Pope isn't. The Pope is not the one mediator between God and man. No one's mistaking the Pope for Jesus Christ. We know he's not Jesus, by the way. We know that Jesus is one mediator between God and man. We don't. So if you're implying that we think that the Pope is the one mediator between God and man, and we've just forgotten about this verse, well, you're wrong because we don't teach that.
Christ.
Yeah, the Pope is, oh, here we go, right? The Pope is often referred to as a mediator. Well, so is Mary. So is your best friend who you've asked to pray for you, right? Presumably you do that. You ask your friend to pray for you, right? So you're making, in fact, you're awful because you're making that person a mediator. Yeah, okay, he's not the one mediator between God and man. No, he's not. He's just praying for you. Well, there you go. That's what the Pope does.
No. Reason why the papacy is wrong, the Pope is often referred as a mediator, which I showed you in 1 Timothy, that there is only one mediator between God and man, and that is Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Jesus Christ is God, right? The Pope is a mediator between us and Jesus Christ, not us and the Father. there's only one mediator between God and man, and that's Jesus Christ. That's Catholic teaching, so, well done. You're on our side.
Also, a verse that the Catholic Church uses to justify giving the Pope such a high position.
Mediator is not a high position. You're a mediator every time you pray for your friends. That's not a high position.
What is Matthew 16:18? And I tell you that you are Peter, which means Petros.
Means rock.
No, Petros, which means rock.
Yeah.
And on this rock, which is Petra, which is different.
So wait a minute. He changes his name from Simon to Peter, and then says on this rock, and means something different. Come on, man. Come on. His name's Simon. But he randomly changes Simon's name to Peter, which means rock, and then says, comma, and on this rock. Oh, but he's talking about something different. It just so happens the same sentence, but the grammar is slightly different between the two rock words, and so that means something completely different. Okay, sure.
Cliff. I'll build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it.
And it didn't, by the way. Okay, the Catholic Church still exists, so the gates of Hades have not overcome it. So praise be to God.
Many Catholics misinterpret this verse by saying that Jesus was referring to Peter as the rock.
Yeah, well, because Peter means rock, and Peter's name isn't Peter; it's Simon. So yes, obviously, you say we misinterpret that. We say you misinterpret that. Who's right?
Foundation of the church. And since Peter gave it to some other guy, like the leadership of the church as the Catholics claim, that gives justification of keep making an apostolic line of popes. But as you see,
well, there's an apostolic line of bishops, not popes. The popes are said by a conclave, which is a sort of council. So you're not quite right there, but we'll let you away with it.
The verse refers to Peter as Petros, which means stone. And Jesus refers the rock as Petra, which means large stone or cliff.
All right, okay. So, and I tell you that you are stone, and on this cliff I will build my church. That sounds to me like a big compliment for Peter. If he's been called stone, but then gets immediately after that described as a cliff. Wow. Well done, Peter. You got promoted very quickly. This is silly. Okay, this is real silly. But again, this is your interpretation, which is you're fallible, so you can make mistakes. I don't really care. As long as you don't get the Catholic Church teaching wrong, which that's what I'll call you out on.
So the verse basically refers to Peter as part of the foundation, not the foundation itself, but the whole foundation, which means the papacy as a whole is false. Don't
not convincing. Sorry.
Vary in Catholics.
No, and again, so you can't go more than a few seconds without making a mistake. Beliefs vary in. No, you're getting confused with Protestantism. Okay, you're used to your church where everyone's got their own ideas about belief, right? That is the exact opposite of Catholic Church. The Catholic Church has published doctrines that apply to everyone, and you should know this because you quoted it in your own presentation here. Canon 9, that's a law, that if Catholics do not believe Canon 9, they're anathematized. You said that yourself. So beliefs do not vary in the Catholic Church. Beliefs are strict in the Catholic Church. You have to believe the dogmas of the Catholic Church. Otherwise, you're not part of the Catholic Church. And then you said in brackets here, so note, beliefs vary in Catholics. The things which I said, most Catholics believe, but not all. And you said except in the doctrines. Well, all doctrine means teaching. Do you mean dogma? Dogma has to be that is binding on everyone. But whether you may well find some Catholics who don't agree with your teachings, but they're wrong because the Catholic Church has got one teaching.
Well, sin, which I'll discuss in my second video, some Catholics believe that if you do a sin, you lose your salvation.
No, all Catholics believe that because that is the truth. That has been taught by the Church, and that's what's taught by Scripture. So all Catholics believe that. And actually all Christians believe that, except for Calvinists. So you're on your own with that one.
Some other Catholics believe that if you do a sin, you won't lose your salvation.
No, that's totally false. Well, they may say that to you, but they're wrong. So.
And many other things. But the doctrines it varies. Like for justification, some Catholics believe in faith alone. Some Catholics believe in faith and works.
No.
Because of that.
You're just wrong here. You just you don't understand the doctrine. You don't understand the teaching. This is being explained to you, and you're not understanding. That's why you may be hearing different stories, because you're talking about different things. Okay, you need to really listen. And I know you don't listen. Okay, you don't listen when I tell you in the chat, right? But you'd be better to ask questions, not tell us what we believe.
Canon. Also, pretty consistently, Catholics claim not to worship Mary.
Yeah, very consistently, in fact. 100% of the time they say that. Yeah.
But they do.
But they do, yes, that's always what we hear. But we do. We don't. You just close your ears. That's what you do. You're not here to find out what or why we do anything. You're just here to tell us, and you're wrong.
As I just showed you. So, beliefs vary in Catholics, the things which I said most Catholics believe in, but not all, except in the doctrines.
You're wrong.
Hope you enjoyed this video.
Well, it was entertaining.
Helpful to you.
It wasn't helpful, but it was entertaining. Unfortunately, it's the same old mistakes. So it's unfortunate. But of course, you got all these mistakes from someone else who made a mistake. So rather than copying other people who are wrong, you could just look up the Catholic Church doctrines yourself, because they're easily available online, and then you wouldn't make mistakes. You could still argue against Catholic teaching, but at least you'd be arguing against real Catholic teaching, not against the mistakes that John MacArthur or Durbin or James White or whoever it is you follow. These people make mistakes because they also don't know, and they also learn from someone else who didn't know. So what you're doing is you've actually got apostolic succession of your own, but it's a succession of error. Unfortunately, you're being taught by people who were taught by people who didn't know what they're talking about. But never mind, because we're here to help you, and I will make a better video where I actually go into all the teachings that you missed because you were just copying and pasting from a prop blog. I'll actually go into the real document and show you exactly where you're wrong when I get home, but that won't be for another couple of days. I'm still working. So God bless you. I hope you found this useful yourself, and you use this as an opportunity to actually learn about real Catholicism before you make any more claims about it. Definitely happy to discuss interpretations with you, but only when you're getting actual teaching of the Church correct. So we'll leave it there, and we'll definitely be speaking again soon. God bless.
Hope this make you have a better idea how the Catholic Church is. Thank you for listening, and God bless.